Hi guys, this is Dale Stiles, and my section is from Chapter 4, Recipe 3, How May the Content of Memes Be Studied? As I mentioned in last week's video, this recipe illustrates techniques to support content analysis of text and images contained in memes, as well as the detection of genres or styles of memetic activity. I don't know if you remember or not, but I was really concerned I was going to have to duplicate this process with these tools that I had never heard of or had used before. So I was really relieved this week that I was only reporting on their process. I'm very thankful for that. So the first step in this process was to choose one or more Facebook pages with memetic activity. As examples, the field guide used two Facebook pages which feature pro-Trump memes from Breitbart and God Emperor Trump, even if the images posted to these pages did not comply with classic memes formats. For example, their image macros. They were looking for memetic features such as virality, user-driven remixing, imitation, and intertextuality. From there, they input the pages into a tool called NetViz. Then they got the images from selected pages, downloaded all of the images surrounding a particular political or media event, and then used those to create a corpus, which is a complete collection of text usually, but in this case it's a big collection of images. They put all this stuff into a corpus. Once they had all the images they wanted, they were able to analyze the corpus with Google Vision API and a script that they used to feed each image through the process one by one. As they did so, they extracted the data that they were interested in obtaining. Part of what they pulled from the images was text, and they looked for occurrences of nouns and adjectives. They used optical character recognition, just like you would with a scanner, to extract the text from the images. Then they put everything through a tool called Cortext. And this is what I was concerned about having to duplicate. I'm like, I never heard of that. So they used this tool called Cortext for linguistic analysis and then obtained a result of either A or B. Result A was the question, what themes lend themselves to memetic activity on Breitbart's Facebook page? The results of Breitbart's page were lumped into this first result. The second result, result B, was the question, can we detect distinct visual styles within a meme repository? And for this, they used the other Facebook page, God Emperor Trump. And on this particular thing, they obtained the images in much the same way that they did for the first result. They placed them into a corpus again, and then looked for visual styles in the memes, which is different than pulling the text. This time they're looking at what did it actually look like. They divided the memes into clusters of similar images. So things that looked the same, things that had Clinton's face would be in one spot, things that had Trump's face would be in another spot, and things that were cartoons would be in another spot. And they divided these into multiple clusters. There's lots of these clusters. These clusters were given an alphabetical assignment, A through N. That's how many they had. And each cluster had multiple categories under it. For a couple of examples, cluster A had categories like people, community, and team. Cluster D had categories like nose, face, mouth, eyeglasses got knocked off. Cluster M, way down the list, had categories like emotion, action figure, costume. And there were so many in between. The ending serving suggestion at the end of this recipe was that the recipe may be used to explore how memes frame political issues, events, and personalities, and what may be considered a form of I struggled with this last week too, remember? Participatory propaganda. And so like last week, I'm going to point out that when you take anything out of its original context, you're only getting a small portion of the truth. A single thread that's been pulled from a bigger fabric. If it's a quilt constructed by a loved one from bits and pieces of garments a person has worn at different stages of its life, that thread does very little to describe the masterpiece that it came from. Furthermore, you can't pull a single quote from a speech or a classic book or the Bible and expect it to describe the entirety of the work that it came from. So while it's permissible to emotionally react to a quote or scripture or this thread, it's also our duty to review the entire work that this fragment came from and determine if that specific moment in time is an accurate depiction of the entire speech, the chapter, or the book that it came from. Way too many times we do this with the Bible. We treat it as a buffet or pieces of trail mix, picking and choosing single verses instead of reading the entire thought that it came from. So as we see this stuff, just remember that even though it's truthful, it's just a thread. It's just a moment in time, and it's up to us to decide, did this truth paint the bigger picture of the whole truth? You know, you run up on somebody who's had a bad day. They're driving a very nice car, flat tire. Okay, so now you've got spare tire, which is donut. Okay, and rusty lug nuts. You take a picture of that and compare it to the rest of the car. It's truthful for that moment in time, but does it paint the bigger picture? And way too often on social media, we get lost in the moment. I don't know how else to put it. We judge by a moment in time as opposed to a collection of memories. All right, we'll see y'all soon.